Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, co-host here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
Coach, it's another beautiful weekend. This is August 1st when this comes out, so we are, 3 weeks for some of us from our first game?
So my
It's
first day of
basically
practice.
Yeah. See, I think our first day of practice is like the 12th.
Of August?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we have a scrimmage that's a Tuesday. I think we have a scrimmage that Friday.
Wow.
And then a game the next Friday. So
we have, I don't know what our scrimmage is. I think our scrimmage is the following Friday. We're
I could be
first
wrong.
practice August 1st, which is a Thursday.
Right.
And then we got first game. We're playing 0 week this year. We get an actual bye week.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So
yeah, we start on the 13th, and we may not have a scrimmage till the 23rd. So that would be 2 weeks of practice.
That would make sense. Yeah.
And then our first game's 0 week on the 30th of August. So
yeah.
It gets popping pretty quick, though.
Yep. Get going. So I'm feeling like this was actually, the funny thing is I have like my vacation week is next week. And so as I'm, wrapping up Thursday at our off-season workouts, I was like, my off-season's done. Because I'm gone next week, and then we're giving them that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and then starting practice on Thursday. So I was like, my off-season's over. This is it. We ain't done now. I mean, it's time. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, which is cool.
Yeah, this is a big offseason for me. Was switching to the offensive side of the ball and stop thinking coverages and fronts as much. More, how do I beat those things and words and merging systems. It's been chaotic, so I'm ready to get it in and get going.
Yep.
First up, I suppose we better do the level up since I've tried to forget it the last 3 podcasts.
No, I'm on you.
I understand. You've saw the trend.
Yeah, I'm on it.
So why don't you tell us about your level up since we last talked 2 weeks ago?
We've had a little time, so there's been a lot. I bought a car. First time that I've bought a car for myself since 2010, when I bought my Hyundai Accent new, which was the cheapest car there was, and it was cheaper than most used cars. And I drove that for 10 years. And then we bought my wife a new SUV, and not a new SUV, a used SUV in, I think, 2020. And I took her 2010 Camry, and every intention of just driving it till the doors fall off. And it just so happened, and the car's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. It just so happened that a friend of mine was trading in his car, and he told me what the trade-in offer was, and I was like, I'll give you that. And so it just worked out. It fell into my lap. Like, okay. Grabbed it, got it. So I have a little, it's a Chevy Equinox. It's not anything, 2018 Equinox. It's not anything special, but it's an upgrade for me. Like, I have a backup camera now. This is stuff that I never had.
Welcome to the 2011.
2013. It's been required by law, I think, since 2013, and I've never had one.
Wow. I didn't realize it was by law. That's pretty neat.
I think it's by law. So, and of course now I have the Apple Play and the remote start and all of the trappings of the newer cars that I never had before. Yeah. So
you got electric windows now. You don't have to use the crank anymore.
Right. It's funny because, my friends have always made fun of me because I just don't value regular cars. I don't value that. And so, I pull up in my, 2010 Camry, perfectly functional car, but there's nothing special about it. And, my friends are like, dude, you run a business, you're successful. Like, shouldn't you? I'm like, no, because I don't care. I care about cars. Right. Like, if we're going to get if we're going to get, a muscle car, I care. I care about that. If I'm going to get a truck that's not a new truck, if I'm going to, build up an old truck, jack it up, make it look beautiful, and get a new paint job, I care about that. But I don't care about the one that gets me to, and I don't have any of those right now, but I don't care about the one that gets me to practice. Like, that doesn't matter to me.
It's a very weird trend, and I unfortunately, we bought a new truck 2 years ago. And first of all, I think there's two ways to look at vehicles, and that is either I'm going to buy used and save money, but spend it in the repair shop because it's a mechanical piece of equipment. Something's going to fail, or I'm going to buy used and pay that repair cost up front so that I have warranty. And most of my life have fallen into the second one. My family is very mechanically inclined. It just never, I never gained interest in it. So It was just meticulous work. I've even worked as a mechanic. Hated that job.
Yeah, I've done all that stuff when I was a kid, and I just don't do it now.
I would love to. I have a 58 Chevy Apache pickup that's sitting in a field because I just don't have the time and resources to fix it. And when I bought it, I thought I did. Someday I will very much so enjoy building an engine for that, going through a transmission, but all the things. But I don't want to do that for my everyday driver. I don't want to wake up some morning and be like, oh, can't get to work because...
Yeah, no, I need something that just gets me there.
Yes. We bought that Honda Insight last year when I started to work at Owasso because of the 1.5-hour drive.
Right.
And I will never get rid of that thing. Just simply for... It's like 48 to 54 miles per gallon. Like, it cost me 1 tank of gas to go to Nashville, Tennessee for AFCA. Yeah. Like $40. It would have cost me $200, $300 to get there in my truck. So
it's funny that this, like, I remember when I bought my Accent in 2010, and I got like 32 miles to the gallon, which was, very good at the time. And then the 2011s came out and they got 40. And I was like, son of a. And this little SUV gets what my Accent got. It's like, okay, we're just, the gas mileage thing is, a little different now. Yeah. I can't imagine the daily driver being the 72 Chevelle getting 7 miles a gallon. Like, that ain't happening.
I always told Sam that would be like my game day truck. Like, hey, it's Friday. Right. When the 58's running, it's like, I'm taking the 58 to work today.
Yep.
And if we start losing games, I quit driving the 58 altogether.
Goes back in the garage. Yep.
Break it out when we can win some games. Oh man. Well, that's a good level up for the family, man. We're going to talk today about trimming offensive playbooks. And so I guess what I really did, and it's a ridiculous level up, but I bought the new college football game.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. And it's, I'll be really honest with you. I after about 2 days of it, I got kind of bored. I was like, I remember I used to geek out on these, but I don't see the foreseeable time that I'm going to want to invest. So I've got to find that niche, whatever it is makes me happy about the game. But so far, what I've really liked is just going through the playbooks and seeing what everyone's doing. And so it's going to even be a part of my spiel today on this trimming your offensive playbook, because I know what we're all doing is we're sitting in front of our TVs now going, well, I could run this. I could run that. That worked really well. I could run that, right? Because it's just chalk lines on the grass right now. So,
yeah.
But going through that and looking at the offensive philosophies and watching how all the counter plays are hitting and power plays are hitting, and it just it
power sucks right now.
I get almost like that imposter syndrome. Like I'm switching to the offensive side and I'm going, what am I going to do when that first Friday hits? And like on defense, it's pretty easy. You're reactionary. You run your base. You stop whatever they're trying to do. If they present a problem, you problem solve and fix it. On offense, though, you're the one that's initiating. So it's like I want to make sure my game plan isn't screwed up. So it was nice to get on there and go, oh, yes, this kind of stuff does work. I know it sounds really stupid doing it on a video game, but the film is all the same film I've seen 100 times. So going back and watching film of us doing it, not as rewarding, I guess. I don't know what the word is, but it's been neat to just get back in the game and run some stuff and remember, like, no, the kids on the other side aren't characters in a video game, but they do have rules. They do the same thing every time without being tagged to do something new. So eventually you can game plan them, and they almost are little characters on a video game screen just on Friday night, right? Defensive ends play like defensive ends, one way or another. So
yep.
It's just been really cool to just kind of get back into the offensive mindset. Like I said, season starts here pretty quick. Although, we're recording a week after the game came out. For some of you, like 2 days after it came out, because
I just got it Friday.
yeah,
And Microsoft, for those who don't know, I at 9:00 on Friday night or on Thursday night was like, all right, I've got everything done. I'm getting it. Now I fought the urge Monday, Tuesday, because I was like, I don't have the time.
right.
I just want it. And I was like, I'll just wait. And I'm, like I said, I'm going on vacation, so it's whatever I played last night and tonight is it. But I go on Thursday at 9:00, and I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and buy it, download it, and have it there at midnight, and at least play a little bit, and then go to bed. And the servers were down, and so it finally came back up. I think maybe I want to say around 10:30 or 11, and I was able to buy it and start the download. It would unlock at midnight, and of course, my download wasn't done until like 12:20.
Right.
And so I immediately jump in, and I'm like, all right, just like get me to at first I watched the opening like video, which was awesome. And it has the welcome to the jungle. And it's like, oh my God, like this is so great. And I played Georgia against Georgia Tech, and
Yeah.
I started on freshman, which was ridiculous. And I moved it to varsity, and it was still really easy with Georgia.
Right.
And I was up like 35-0 at the half, and I was like, all right, I'm going to bed. I got my. So last night I started a dynasty with San Diego State, and I'm a San Diego State fan because I had them in a pool for the Final Four basketball. So I was like, I'm going to go with San Diego State. They kind of fit that like program that needs to be built up and all that sort of stuff. That's the fun part. And last night I lost to Oregon State on varsity level. So, but you know what? The funny thing is Georgia has this massive playbook. It's kind of like what we're talking about. And I don't know if it's because people know more about Georgia or what, but Georgia has this very large playbook. And San Diego State's playbook is much, much smaller. Much smaller. San Diego State's playbook almost makes sense. Some of the passing concepts don't, and I hate the way curl flat concepts. By the way, the easiest pass to throw is curl flat for me so far. But I hate the way some of the passing concepts are. I'm like, just give me mirrored. Just give me an opportunity to run some mirrored concepts, right? Or just tag a wheel or something.
You can make your own playbook, Joe.
I know. I got to go in there and mess with it. Like I said, I've only played 2 games in the dynasty. I beat FCS Midwest, although it was dicey.
I've said those FCS teams have claimed some souls already this season. You put on Heisman, you ain't beating them.
No, well, I have got to build the muscle memory back up. So I used to be really good, but that was 2002. So
it was I did use it for the first little bit on defense. I don't play the defense anymore because it's just ridiculous. Like you can't stop them sometimes. But I remember the last time I played that game was 11 years ago. I didn't coach any football, right? I barely played football, and
you're probably better at it. The more I learned to coach, the more I got sucked at it.
Yeah, now I'm like middle linebacker, just reading linebacker reads, and then go fit. And I'm like, God, this works. This is so stupid how this works. And so it's pretty awesome. Like, anyway, all right, man. Now we're done with our level up. Let's pay the bills and talk about trimming an offensive playbook.
Yeah, go check out joedanielfootball.com/rules. 40 Coach Simple rules for football coaches that want to win more games. Things like the Coach Simple philosophy, practice planning, game planning, the non-negotiables for your drills and for your position groups and your ask a lever principle. I think the non-negotiables by itself, just establishing that is extremely valuable. So go check that out. It's a free download. Enter your email address at joedanielfootball.com/rules, RULES.
Awesome. Athletic Speed Movement, athleticspeedmovement.com. Jump over there. I know it's kind of getting late to start something new like that. And I understand because we tried to do it post summer break, post Ed Week with us. And it's like slowing the kids down. It just doesn't vibe right with the coaching staff, right? So we're going to...
The coaching staff, yeah. The coaching staff is your problem, yeah.
Right.
You got to get the coaching. So head coaches, do it.
There you go.
Everybody else, you're going to get fall on it right now.
You got a chance. Get really good at knowing it, to know the content, and then be ready to put it in and whenever season's over. But
You're a head coach.
There's no
Go ahead and get it
reason.
and make it a part of your Monday and Thursday practices.
That's right.
First thing you do.
Athleticspeedmovement.com. All the stuff is there. You're going to learn Del Basquet's 46 plus years of knowledge from the very first speed coach in the NFL. Now he's teaching thousands of players across the nation. Multiple kids have gotten to college or the NFL, and they all blame it on Dell and his programs. Now we're kind of putting that at your fingertips on the interwebs, athleticsspeedmovement.com. Question 1. We're talking about trim and playbook today. So, like I said, I know we've all sat in front of it's weird to not say NCAA football, but just EA college football 25 for 1 to 7
Oh, is that the name? I've just been calling it
21
NCAA.
days. Yeah, they took it out because I
Right.
guess NCAA wouldn't sign off on something or whatever. But
I will. One more thing about that game. The first time, and I know that we could edit the rosters, and then the last couple we could download the rosters and everything. But the first time that without doing anything, I played and I throw a pass and Delp, the tight end for Georgia, catches it, and they're like, Delp with the catch. And I was just like, it's jarring. I'm like, where is TE number 4?
right. For sure. It is definitely different now that it's all pre-done. It's kind of like spinning up Madden, right? Like it's a little strange. But we know we've been sitting in front of that. We've all been sitting on the beach drinking our whatever you drink and talking ball with coaches. I myself have been, hitting up my network and doing more football research. That's what we spent our off season doing. Or you should have. You should have been out doing an off season this summer, getting better at football, learning more football. But it doesn't mean that you've got to run it all, right? You still need to make sure that you're running what you're going to be good at, running your system. And then if you want to tag some of that stuff up, you can do so, right? If you need it for a situational, whatever. I had gotten pretty big on Twitter about the sharing. A lot of people are asking, how do you call this play in your system? And a lot of it's just super basic, but I think you do need a system that can contain all that stuff. But it doesn't mean you have to be running it all right now. And so that's what I'm going to get back to today is just kind of talking, get back to core, that week 1 install. What are we going to go in and set the tone? And maybe this is the same play that week 10, we get into the playoffs and you need that first down to keep the season alive. These are the plays, right? It's the Jackie Moon. We're going to run the vomit, right? Like, what is that? Well, we ran it. I seared it into your brains. Like, we ran it 100 times. So kind of what are those core plays that you're going to get back to as we jump in here into the, first couple weeks of fall camp? So first question, Joe, what are the must keeps?
This comes down to playbook design, and playbook design is very, I hated the question used to always be asked, how many plays do I need? This is the question I used to always get. How many plays do I need? How many run plays? How many pass plays, etc. And I used to always say, well, it depends. And I didn't like that answer. And nobody had ever given me a good answer. And that's not to say that nobody else ever had this idea. I may have even unknowingly stolen it from someone. I have no idea. But I came up with an answer, which is essentially this. And I've long held this belief, but I just kind of congealed it into almost a principle. You need an inside run play, A gap, B gap, something that attacks inside between the tackles. You need an off tackle run play. So power, outside zone, something like that. Outside zone is not a toss play. It's often run too long. Outside zone is run at the hip of the tight end, inside hip of the tight end. You need a toss play, an outside run play, toss, sweep, jet sweep, rocket toss, truck toss for us. You need something that goes to the perimeter. And you need a counter of some sort, a counter off of one of those runs. A lot of coaches, and you don't need a counter off of every single play. You don't need a play action off of every single play. And I remember Bill said that on our podcast one time, and that was one thing I disagree with. I think you need one play action. Initially, I don't have to play action everything. I don't have to counter everything. But I have to have something that makes your kids go, like, makes your defensive players go, crap, I can't just do this every time. Like, I've got to get the wheels spinning on them. I've got to take advantage of them. I've got to, and all I'm trying to do is slow them down. I do that with the interior using a counterplay. I do that with the umbrella, the secondary, the back end with play actions. Ways to make them be wrong sometimes. And so that's essentially, we want an interior run play, an off tackle run play, an outside run play, and a counter. Then we want a play action, one play action. Now, again, what I'm saying here is this is the things that you need to have, and you start with. If you are starting with 9 play actions, take them. You don't have to delete them, but move them back up in the cloud, right? And let's just keep the one. Now, and I always have to caveat this: if it's working, you're fine. So I get guys who'd be like, well, "We run 9 play actions and it worked. We're state champions. Awesome." I'm talking to the 0-9 team. I'm talking to the 2-8 team. Okay. Right. I'm talking to the new guy who just got the job because his son is on the team and they needed a coach for his youth team. Okay. If you have an established system, God bless you. Come talk about it with us. Like we're down. But I'm talking to the guy who's not got it all figured out. I always love that argument. It's like, it's like people Nick Saban's a great defensive coach, right? Okay. You don't start with Nick Saban's defense. Right. Like that's stupid. So then we add in quick game, passing. And until we have all of that established, I don't know that we need drop back passing. That said, establish all that, and then you add in your drop back passing, and then we can get into what goes into that. But really, it starts with an inside run play, an off tackle run play, an outside run play, and a counter. And then a play action, and then quick game. You need a screen, you need a draw. Screens are just about slowing down the defensive line. So you run a screen. A draw play is about slowing down the linebackers on their drops, right? The linebackers are flying out of there and the defensive linemen are flying up the field, or you're blitzing the hell out of us. We run a draw or a screen. It's just slowing you down, making you think. All of those plays have purpose and design. And that's how we put it together.
I guess there's ways that you can do this in the between the tackles, off tackle, a stretch, or outside play. I think run game. A lot of people that would make those different families of plays. They want to run inside zone between the A gaps. They want to run power counter, off tackle, and then whatever toss jet, whatever. Mm-hmm. I can definitely see where giving multiple looks to the defense is definitely beneficial. I can also see where now, having finally dipped my toe into the offensive side, like maybe I just want to run gap scheme for everything. So I think you have some choices to make, and it might be what your kids are best at. If you've got guards that can hit a double team and get a lot of vertical movement, maybe you keep the zone plays, right? If they're, especially if not very good at moving laterally, if they can't pull and kick and pull and wrap, you start picking between the power counters and zone plays. Maybe that's how you're looking at it.
It has nothing to do with gap scheme or zone scheme. If you can be all gap scheme, your inside play would be trap, your off tackle play would be power, your counter play would be GT counter or whatever, and your toss play is your toss, pin and pull.
Yeah,
that's your scheme. You can be all zone. You run inside zone, you run outside zone, you run some sort of counter type zone, and you run our truck toss play, which is a zone scheme with a pin and pull.
Absolutely.
That's so. Yeah, nothing to do. The key is you have to be able to attack the defense in all of these areas. Which we can get into how we use all these plays later. But I mean, that's the key is that that's why you have to have them. It doesn't matter.
For sure. Yeah. 100% agree. I was going with more of like with this week 1, unless you're just really good at inside zone and power, you may consider grouping them into families for that first week install, right? Or maybe even the first 2 or 3 weeks as you get those fundamentals locked in. You are really good at gap scheme before you start adding, because that's where you start getting back to the core of your whatever you're going to carry into the season. You've probably been practicing a ton of RPOs and double option, triple option, all these crazy passing concepts, but you may not need it all yet. I mean,
Mhm.
that's one thing we don't need to think that, hey, whatever we put in week 1 is what we're going to look like week 10. In fact, I would say more times than not, that's not what it's going to look like. I've seen about one team in my 4 years that on week 1 and week 10, they were running the same stuff. And they were really good at power. There was no stopping their power, actually. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a couple ways to figure out which of those plays to keep, I guess, is more where I was going.
Sure. So it's which plays to keep we can get into in a minute, but it's also important to understand that all of those fancy option plays are doing exactly what I just said, right? So let's say we run a triple option, just a base triple option, flex bone, triple option, split back veer. Well, that has a dive, which is an inside run play. The quarterback is going off tackle. The pitch is the outside run play. So if you run inside zone, or excuse me, if you run inside veer and a counter, that's your offense. So what should you spend your time on? You should spend 75% of your time on your split back veer, inside veer, and you should spend 25% of your time on your counter. This is a very basic. Obviously, there's more things that go into it. People run a toss. Sometimes you don't want it to be option. Sometimes you just want it to be a straight up toss play. You want it to be a straight up dive play, and there's differences in that. RPOs are combining your run play with your play action. That's all that it is that the play action is now built into the run play, and you are causing conflict for the defender. So when you run RPOs, when you run option, you should be pulling less. You need less in the playbook because those cover multiple things.
Right.
Now, again, sometimes you want to run your RPO. Sometimes you just want to run a play action. That makes sense, but they should be extensions of each other as much as possible and not entirely new concepts.
Yep. Awesome. Part 2 here. Why do we need to trim the rest of it?
That comes down to the Coach Simple philosophy, right? It's Coach Simple, play fast, win. It's keep it simple so that your kids understand what they're being asked to do. If they understand what they're being asked to do and they've done it 1,000 times, they're confident in their ability to do it. They believe they can do it. They believe in themselves. The coaches have less to teach. For those of you with less experienced coaching staffs or some coaches on staff who are less experienced, or if you're installing something new and you're trying to learn it, you have less to teach. You have less to learn. You have less to break and try to fix. And so the less that you have without having not enough. So we kind of established in part 1 what is enough. If I don't have these things, I don't have enough. But now we don't want to have too much because I'm going to be overwhelmed, or my coaches aren't going to know what to run, or my players aren't going to understand it, or I'm not going to know what to call in a game because I've got this call sheet with 9,000 things on it, and I'm going, I don't know what to do with that. So you keep it simple so that your kids, your coaches, everybody understands, they believe in it, they have confidence in it. Confident players play faster, they execute, they fly around. We talk about coaches are like, I want our players to be more aggressive. Aggressiveness in blocking, aggressiveness in attacking a hole, aggressiveness in releasing a football comes from confidence, not from making them growl when they hit the bag in practice. That's not making them aggressive. Aggressiveness doesn't come from slamming two kids together until they're both concussed. Aggressiveness comes from building confidence. If you want your kids to play play aggressive, that's playing fast. That's showing up at the point of attack. That's showing up where you're supposed to be with a purpose. If you think of somebody showing up at the block point with a purpose, that's aggressive. He knows why he's there. He knows what he's supposed to do. He knows how to do it. He knows he's done it 1,000 times. He knows he can win it. You're aggressive. And so if we're doing a bunch of crap that we don't need to do, number one, we'll never get to call it, because if I have 9 play actions, how many play actions you can run in a game?
Not that many. I mean, what are you getting, 50 plays?
5 or 6. Yeah, let's say you have 60 snaps. 10% play action, 6 snaps. And that's probably on the high end for a lot of teams. Like, all right, I'm going to run, if I'm going to be perfectly balanced, I run 30 run plays and 30 pass plays. Presumably, if I'm running 30 pass plays, I have quick game. I have at least 2 or 3 quick game concepts. I have 2, 3, 4 drop back concepts. And then I have 5 play actions. Like what? I play action off every run play. It's like that's disproportionate because I assume I'm going to run more hitch and fade than I'm going to run, counter pass or something, or keep pass or anything like that. It wouldn't make sense. Now, maybe every once in a while, maybe. But so again, you're not going to be able to call all that stuff. And some guys are like Boy Scouts. They're like, well, I've just got to have it all available to me. I got to be prepared for anything they throw at me. And again, we just went over how you be prepared for anything they throw at you. It's not having 86 plays. It's doing an inside, an off tackle, an outside, a counter, a play action really well, so that when you look at the numbers on the defense and you go, there's a numbers advantage inside, you run a very good inside run play.
Yeah.
We'll get into the design of that in a minute. I don't want to jump.
I think being a new guy on this side of the ball, there is that temptation to have an answer for everything. Maybe they're really good at either defensive end, a defensive tackle, an outside backer, an inside backer. So I want to stay away from him or read him or double team him or whatever it is. And so all of a sudden my inside zone play has turned into, well, I need a lead. I need to, I'll be able to call that combo where they stay on him. You just get into a lot of tags, a lot of terminology. And in spring, that's what we did, right? We looked at a ton of stuff. I wanted the kids to get a taste of like, look, our playbook, we can have hundreds of tags and we can make this thing hum however we want. But when it comes down to it, I think on Friday nights, just being really good at the few things, less of those problems are going to show up anyway, right? That defensive end is going to be less dominant because, like you said, he's going to get kicked that first time when we run power or counter or whatever. And very quickly, he's going to understand that, hey, these guys are bringing it. They are confident. They are showing up with a purpose. There's no better way to shut a kid down than, what does Marshawn Lynch say? Like, run through his face. I think he put some other bleeped out words in there. But, yeah, if you run through his face, he'll quit showing up to the party eventually. And so if you can do that almost like a well-oiled machine, right? Over and over and over again. Those kids they're gonna give up. They're gonna be like, all right, this isn't working. Coach, put someone else in. And now that stud isn't there anymore. So you can problem solve a lot of those things just by being good at what you do in your base stuff.
Once you establish those base plays, tags are fine.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with tagging. So, I mean, just as an example, our counterplay is a tag on our power play. It just swaps the G and the H as responsibility, allows us to run away from the H-back.
Right.
And the H-back is the backside wrapper. That's our base counterplay. We can GT counter too, which would just be a tag, and all it changes is instead of the H pulling, it's the tackle pulling. And the H can fill backside for the pull. So tags are fine. Our quick passing game, you can build a very effective passing game out of hitch seam or all hitch and slant flat. And you can tag, so essentially slant is a cover 3 / man beater. It's a good man. I don't like it against cover 3, but I like it against man for slant flat. And hitch seam is a good cover 3 beater, and of course 4 verts. So we tag the up onto that, and it's 4 verts for us. And really we're just looking to throw the fades. And so that becomes a man beater, right? And so I can repurpose these things. I can tag in a fade, or I can tag in a wheel on the slant. I can tag in a corner on the slant. I can tag in a sluggo. And so I can create I can tag an out on the 4 verts, tag an out on the inside guys. It becomes a bench concept for a quarters beater. And so I can tag those to create a very robust passing game. If I had 8 plays, it's harder for me to run 3 tags off of every play. But if I have 2 base plays, it's very easy to have 3 different tags on those 2 plays. So it's just a different approach to it. And of course, a lot of this also depends on how much time you get. If you're in a school where you're a big school and most of your guys only play football, and you're doing 7-on-7 passing leagues and you're going to tournaments and you're just ruining your coaches' off-season lives, that's great. You can probably run a very robust passing game. If you're at a school that has a football class and you've got your guys all the time and you don't need time after school for weight room or whatever, you can probably do, there's differences in how much time you have, how much time you invest, and everybody makes their decisions. But if you're at a small school where a big number of your players play baseball or they're on the track team, and which is good. We want them to be involved in their sports at a small school because that's how you support the athletics at a small school. I want my right tackle to play soccer. That's great. It's weird, but it's great. And, he can punt for us. So like, that's the reality of us is we can't install a massive playbook because we just couldn't execute it at all. The more time you have and the more, the more years you have. When I had my team at Amelia that had run the same offense for 3 years, and we were a team that in year 2 and year 3, especially year 3, where the offense we installed at the beginning was the offense we ran at the end. It looks, you watch the 2018 film, you're watching the same team running the same offense with the same formations because it was all in because they've been running for 3 years. Once you have that established, then you could do more. We didn't have to because we executed those things really well and we had good athletes. So that's like we could do more, but we don't have to. We had better receivers and we just ran fade.
Yeah.
And threw it on the right spot. Or hitch if you played 10 yards off.
I love it. I can't wait for this year. I don't want to look forward to the future. I like this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. So part 3 here, Joe, we'll just move right along since we've already kind of hinted at some of it anyway, but how do you decide what stays and what goes when you start picking those individual plays versus locations we want to attack? So what is it that you go in? What thought process goes into that?
As you start to look through your playbook, again, inside, off tackle, outside, counter, you look for redundancy. You look for plays that are redundant. And I see playbooks where we've got an inside zone, we've got a trap, we've got a wedge, we've got a dive, we've got, 5 different ways to attack between the A gap. We got an ISO. ISO is another. ISO is generally a gap scheme inside play as well. So I've got ISO, I've got trap, I've got, trap is a little bit different than ISO and it's a little bit different than, I'm working counts right now, right? I'm working where's the numbers advantage, and I'll talk about that and how we use it. But the first thing I look for is redundancy. I have plays that are redundant. I have plays that are just the same, attacking the same area. So that's where I start. I look at all my plays that are, and like you said, we generally tend to group, and I do too. I group my gap scheme plays and I group my zone scheme plays. I've got power counters, our gap scheme. I would group if I ran it ISO into that. I would group if I ran it trap into that. And then I've got my zone scheme plays, and that's our inside zone, outside zone, and our pin and pull truck toss concept. So I've got those concepts. So those are grouped that way. But as I'm looking to see what we need and what we don't, I look at, okay, where am I, let me put all of my inside run plays in a bucket. And don't tell me that you run this stuff out of this formation and this stuff out of this formation. Like they're not that smart. Stop giving them credit for that. Like, you need to look at first of all, you need a formation. You need an identity first. Don't start with 9 different offenses. Start with plays that attack areas, and then you can worry about the different look off of it and this and that. And then you want to look at how many plays do I have to attack inside? How many plays do I have that attack off tackle? So our off tackle plays, and I'll get to in a minute, but our off tackle plays, counter is an off tackle play, but it's a counter. Power, and we run outside zone. By the way, those are both off tackle plays. But at times I would consider them redundant, but I don't. In most of the time at the varsity level, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But some coaches run like a blast play. Some coaches will run a G power, which is front side kick out. Coaches will all sorts of different ways to do that. Buck sweep. Let's say you run power and you run buck sweep. Well, those are both off tackle plays. Buck sweep is not a sweep. Buck sweep is an off tackle play when run correctly. And then you look at your toss plays and your outside run plays, and you go, okay, we have jet sweep, we have rocket toss, we have truck toss, or just a straight up toss play or whatever. We have just all these different things. And by the way, extensions of that, bubble is arguably an outside run play more so than a pass play. Right. So you make sure you group those short passes together as well if you run bubbles and things of that nature. So we look at those and then counters and, how many ways do we have misdirection in our offense? And I'm not talking about misdirection by a lot of the misdirection we create by using motions and creating the look of misdirection, but I'm talking about real live misdirection plays that look like it's going one way at the start of the play and then it goes the other way. So, do we have a GT counter? Do we have a regular counter? Do we have a whatever different things that we can do, a scissors, all that kind of stuff. We group those together and we look at, all right, which of these do we keep and which of these do we kill? Which, and the way that we would decide that is how many of these can we eliminate teaching for specifically the offensive line. And so when we look at our scheme in the pistol power offense system, the counter is a tag off of the power. So we don't have a power scheme and a counter scheme. It's one blocking scheme with a tag that swaps the G and the H, the guard and the H back. So that's one blocking scheme. And the front side is the same. So we teach that. So that's how we, instead of running some totally different scheme, let's say that our off tackle play was, just as an example, let's say that we had an offense where the inside run play was ISO, the off tackle run play was power. The two are not particularly related. They're gap scheme, but they're not. They don't reuse the teaching. And our counter play was, I take that back. Our inside play was ISO. Our off tackle play was outside zone. Our counter play was GT counter, and our outside play was a straight up tall or a jet sweep. Right. That's not a good combination, even though it goes inside, off tackle, outside, because none of those is reusable. We have 4 schemes. So we then run inside zone and outside zone, and the entire inside zone and outside zone count system is the same. All that changes is the aiming point for the offensive line and for the back. There's a couple little changes in the combo, but for the most part, the day that we install inside zone, we install outside zone too. We also install our pass protection because we use the exact same count system. And then when we install our truck toss, everybody but the tackle and the tight end or H-back or whoever, from guard back, is running outside zone. So it's essentially a tag onto outside zone. And so the way that we came to build that, the way that was built, I didn't build it. Coach Mountjoy taught it to me, and he's pulled it from other places. But we only have 2 blocking schemes. So as you look at, okay, I've got too much stuff, or if you look at I don't have enough stuff, and you go, okay, I don't have enough stuff. I have an inside run play, but I don't have an off tackle run play. Then you look at, okay, what's my inside run play? And you say, well, it's trap. Okay, well, the natural complement to that is power, because the same guard pull kicking out, but the ball is hitting 2 gaps wider or 3 gaps wider, depending on where you hit your trap. So that would be it's a gap scheme play or buck sweep or something like that. Something with pulls would make sense because you are able to reuse some of the teaching that you've already used. Because I've got to pull and I got to kick out, and so we can somewhat reuse that. If inside zone is your play, then outside zone is your off tackle play. That works. We keep both at the varsity level most of the time, though we have not run a ton of outside zone lately because we just haven't been good at it. I'm hoping to get back to that because I think we've got a back that can do it. We keep both inside the power and the outside zone, which are off tackle plays, because if your defensive end wants to crash down the line and blow up our puller, that's fine. We're going to run outside zone and hook him and go around him with outside zone, go off the hip of the tight end. So that the way that you're playing me, and if you want to play for outside zone, we're going to kick you out. Right. Yeah. So I don't feel like that's redundancy, because of the way the defensive end plays. And then we also, we have other things with the defensive end very easily add in as you build, like you said, tag. Okay, we want to tag zone read because we have a quarterback we want to get out there. That's great. Zone read now gives us an inside run play and an off tackle run play combined, reading the defensive end, so giving another look to the defensive end. But what's the offensive line running? Inside zone. Nothing new for them. And so that is a play that expands our offense eventually, but it doesn't change our offensive line. It's very simple for them. So that's how we start to pull those things together, and start to decide what we want and what we don't want. And then what you decide is what we want to call. And this is the important part. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying about, what do we install day one? And by the way, if you're a middle school coach, you need to be a part of our stuff because our middle school teams run this and have tremendous success. I'm not talking about the ones that I coach. I'm talking about the dozens of middle school programs that I've worked with. And we've got dozens more this year because our stuff works. You run the 4-2-5 defense or the 3-3. Some coaches run the 3-3, but you run the 4-2-5 or the 3-3, and you run this offensive system. You pick a play. Now, most of the time it's power for our teams. For us, it's been inside zone last 3 years. But you pick a play, power. We just been better at inside zone. Like I said, I like to install everything and let the team figure out what we're good at rather than dictating it. But if I was a middle school coach, if I was a new coach, if I was installing a new system, I would install power, and I would get great at power. And I would say, this is who we are. I don't know anything else. I don't, as a coach, I'm installing a system for the first time. I don't have time to become a master of everything. So I'm going to become a master of power. Which is a great title, by the way. It's like He-Man, but not the same. And so I'm just going to get great at running power, at teaching power, at executing power. We're going to run that so well that all things equal, if you run your base defense and I run power and our players are relatively equal, power is going to work. And we're going to get 4 or 5 yards a pop and just matriculate the ball down the field. And then what I look at as a play caller is how you now figure out how you're going to stop power. And if you do it by getting your strong safety involved, your overhang gets too tight, then I am going to run toss. Because now your force player is too tight. And I'm going to hook him, I'm going to seal him, and I'm going to run toss. So I'm going to let you tell me what to run. So this goes back to your point of now you're calling the shots. I look at offensive play calling completely different. I look at the defense calling the shots, and I'm just answering. Where are the holes? Where are the numbers advantages? Where's the leverage? Where's the spacing? And so if I run power and your strong safety jumps in there and makes a tackle on power, and it wasn't perfectly spilled, he just jumped in the gap, right? He's playing tight. I'm going to run toss because now I have a numbers advantage, a leverage advantage to the outside. If you decide to stop power by widening the middle, right? You put more players towards B gap, C gap, and you open up the A gaps. We've had teams run double threes. I'm going to run my inside play, which for a really basic system is wedge. If you run our full pistol power offense system, be inside zone, but in a really basic, like our middle school and youth programs, wedge. You give us numbers inside, we're going to run wedge, quarterback sneak, wedge, whatever. And then if your backside linebacker is coming over, let's say your backside linebacker is flying to your H-back. We use a lot of H-back motion, shiny object, and we'll have teams just blitz the motion or slide with the motion. As soon as I see your linebackers move, the next play is counter. We counter back because I know I have a numbers advantage backside.
Yeah.
So and then if your corner, as soon as I see your corner make a tackle, power pass. Like the strong safety gets involved, I can run power pass. And it's the play action, whatever you have. But if your corner gets involved, like I want our guys to listen. I want my quarterback to be aware of what the coaches on the other side are yelling sometimes. And if we run toss and the corner gets yelled at,
game on, Holmes.
we coming right back. And that corner is going to be like, I got to go stop the run because I'm getting yelled at, and we're throwing the ball over top of him for a touchdown. Like, pay attention to the goon on the other sideline who's yelling at his corner for not making tackles on the run.
That was me
His
first year,
deep
Joe.
third stay in coverage corner.
That was me.
I know. I'm trying to help y'all. I can't be nice and help. So
that was my first year. I didn't know any better.
And then you look at, if the defensive line just pinning their ears back, you run the screen. You take advantage of passing game. If you've got numbers in the box, if you've got a 9-man box, you look at the passing game, and then you look at the leverage of the corner, and now you're looking at space. And if the corner is 8 yards off, you throw the hitch. And if the corner is pressed or is within 7 yards or 6 yards, you throw the fade. And you just try to get guys out of the box. And that's how you use your play calling. But it all starts with getting great at one play. And the critical key to all of that is I don't have to be great. I need to be great at running one thing. And in this case, the example uses power. Because when I run my toss play, I've set you up, and I have a numbers advantage for the toss, and I have a leverage advantage for the toss. So I don't have to be great at toss because I have an advantage already. I don't have to be great at counter because I have a numbers advantage because your backside linebacker is overplaying. I don't have to be great at power pass because your corner's jumping up there, and I got a wide open deep shot. I don't have to be great at wedge because you've opened up and given me a numbers advantage between the tackles. So the key there is I want to get great at one thing and get adequate at everything else that we can execute it and win when we have a numbers advantage or leverage advantage or space advantage.
Absolutely. I love it.
That's my offensive spiel. I have nothing else to give.
Nothing else to give. I think when we talk about what stays and what goes, I think you also have to look at personnel. Who do you have? Who do you need to get the ball to? I'm going to have... I could play 7-card stud with how many running backs I'm going to have this year, and then maybe some 5-card draw with my wide receiver core. So I've got a couple guys out wide that I need to get the ball to, but everyone else I have in the backfield, right? So I don't have to carry as much when it comes to the passing game, and my quarterback's mobile. So I kind of have the ability to hit, like you said, Joe, any of those inside, off tackle, outside, and all of their counters. But my counters only have to be another play. I can literally just tag read, and I'm kind of giving that option to pull it and run backside. Now I will carry power counter, inside, outside zone. Basically, your version of day one install, the 5-day install.
5-day install, yeah.
That's basically what we're gonna have, and it comes back to that limiting how much you have on the O line. We're gonna make our skill guys do all the ridiculousness, and O line is gonna learn gap scheme left to gap scheme right, zone left, zone right, change some angles or who's.
And that's the thing about the RPO, like RPOs, just as an example. If your quarterback can read RPOs, go nuts. It's all about what your quarterback can handle and your receivers to an extent, but it's all about what your quarterback can handle. If you've got all freshman offensive linemen, like and a senior quarterback who can read an RPO like nobody's business, it's like go nuts. And because the offensive line, that'll help them, but also like nothing changes for them. They're just running zone or whatever. They're running their base play. So you're right. There's a big factor of what can this group handle versus this group. It's like if I have a really experienced offensive line, yeah, I can run more stuff because the skill kids will figure it out. One thing you learn is that the kids getting the ball usually figure it out. It's the kids that aren't getting the ball that you got to worry about.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think you also look at like some things can just be added back later. You don't have to come out with every shiny thing. In fact, it might help you to not. Joe, you already mentioned snap counts. Like, guys, you only get so many snaps, and you said 60, and I still live in that part of the state where small ball, like my head coach told me this year, he's like, I see you want to go a lot of one-word stuff because you want to go fast. We're going to watch the last 10 seconds click off the play clock. So there's still that mentality out there. I'm going to get 40 snaps a game unless the defense is just not good, which that's not going to happen. The staff that's on that side of the ball is going to be excellent. So I have...
You get a running clock and you only run like 35. That you get a running clock, not they get a running clock.
Right. Clock's running for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons.
Right. Then your game has 35 snaps and we go home. I love going home at 8:30 on a Friday night.
That's what I'm talking about. The need for me to carry all the shiny objects into every week just isn't there, because I'm going to play the long game, and that's something else you have to consider. Is like, sure, I've made someone waste a whole bunch of practice looks this week on my zone read, but next week I'm going to run bash instead. So they've wasted all week looking at me trying to run my quarterback. I don't want to run my quarterback backside. I want to throw the ball, or I want to hand it off to a running back, or so you don't need all the shiny objects every week. So there's no reason to carry all that into week one. And you'll probably find yourself eliminating things from the beginning of the season as you get to the end. Not going to be your base plays, I would assume. But a lot of those tags and extra things. So
use different tags week to week. And we haven't even gotten to the passing game, which is a whole, and again, passing game, we kind of touched on it. Passing game needs, you need your zero beaters, you need your one beaters and cover one and cover three beaters are usually similar. But you have your cover zero beaters, you have your cover three beaters, you have your cover two beaters if anybody runs cover two in your area. A lot of places don't. And then your quarters beaters if you need them. Obviously if you're at the middle school level, you don't need quarter, or youth level, you don't need quarters beaters. You probably just need cover three or man. And then you have packages. So like for us, I don't like to kick extra points. I like to go for two. And so we have a package for going for two. We have, kind of a goal line package. We have, which may have a different look, but doesn't go in the base, but does reuse all of the blocking assignments.
Absolutely.
We have special plays for red zone. We have special, little adjustments, but they're adjustments. They're not new plays. They're not, and those things develop over time. And, initially, like a lot of coaches, some coaches will say like, well, I need this for the red zone. It's like, but you can't get to the red zone right now. Who cares? Like, great that you have something. Like, let's try to run your base offense in the red zone. See how that is. We got to get there first. Like, you averaged 12 yards a game last year. Let's get to the red zone, and then we'll talk about red zone plays, goal line plays. Like, so you just got to know where you're at. And right. Almost everybody that we work with, that is, and again, I do these kickoff registrations and for our new coaches and send personalized videos. And I can tell from your record and your responses exactly what's going on. And almost without question, anybody under 500 and 500 included, usually, it is, this isn't like you're a bad coach. It is, you have some talent, and that talent is not performing the way that they should, which is a coaching problem that we have to solve. And it's usually solved by better execution, which is solved by a skinnier playbook. And then when you get to 7-3, 8-2, second round of the playoffs, third round of the playoffs, then we can talk about some scheme.
Right.
But most of the time, if you get good in a lot of areas, not everywhere, your area and where you were at last year, like, no, just being good at 4-2-5 cover three, that is not going to get you to the, to the top of the heap when you have a schedule like you had last year.
Right.
But most people aren't in an area like that. That's an extremely high level of football. Most people aren't dealing with that. And I would guess that the team that I assume that there's a doormat there, right? There has to be one.
There always is.
And whoever's the doormat, I bet they execute like garbage. I bet they're not running cover three great. I bet their execution is garbage, and they could get out of being the doormat and be competitive by just executing cover three. Like,
right.
At least they wouldn't. At least somebody else could be the doormat for them if they just could execute. That's always the first answer, is just execute something. Offense, defense, special teams, doesn't matter. I bet their special teams is garbage too, by the way. No offense to the doormat team in that conference, but come see me.
It happens. It's got to be somebody every year, right? Somebody has to be it.
I coached that team in my early years.
I'm glad you brought up passing scheme, because I think that's overlooked a little bit. We get very heavy into the run, especially in these first few games. Unless you're, Ron Mackey and you're going to run the air raid, and that's your jam. Which, if that is,
yeah, that's your thing.
Absolutely nothing.
Whatever. It's okay to be wrong.
Ron loves tight ends. He just won't admit it in public. That's what it is. But yeah, I do. I like how you kind of organize that. Like, you need to have your 1 or 2 or 3 beaters for each coverage, whatever you're seeing that week. You don't need a lot of them. right? You don't need
2 or 3.
15 pass plays. I think, and more now than ever, I think football's trending towards lots of formations for very few plays. And so I think you do need passing concepts that make sense out of 5 wide, 2x2, 3x1, condensed, right? Like I think you talk about reusability of that, the concepts. I think the passing is the exact same thing. If you can't just have a pass play you run out of every formation, because you're very quickly going to get found out.
No, but you can tag it.
Right. Yep. So, yeah, I think, obviously this is going to be a little bit more run heavy because we're in that week 1. Unless you just are a huge passing team, I think you're going to win the game in the trenches anyways. If you're first year OC.
Air raid has no difference to it, by the way. Air raid is attacking areas, and you have to have answers to attack each area. You still need a run game that attacks inside, off tackle, outside, and counter. You still need that. And if you use your short passing game to do some of that, perfectly fine. Air raid still has to have, you're basing it on, you're going the opposite direction. And that's perfectly fine. The rules still apply. You're attacking coverages and attacking space and coverages. And if you look at the base concepts of air raid routes, it's the exact same thing.
Yes.
Just, from the passing, starting with the pass.
Finding grass or space or whatever the terminology your crew
numbers
uses.
Numbers.
We say it too, right? We look for bubbles. We look for space. We look for numbers. So.
Numbers is, if you look at numbers, what's 4 verts? 4 verts is attacking 3 deep with 4 verticals.
Yeah.
That's a numbers advantage. Why do we run curl flat? Because I can get 3 out to a side. I can get a hook curl flat route against a flat defender and a curl flat defender, or a hook defender and a curl flat defender, or a hook curl defender and a flat defender.
Right.
But there's 2 guys and I've got 3 routes. That's numbers game. That's all we're looking for is numbers advantages. That's it. And it's just different places on the field. And that's what people spacing, leverage, those all essentially come down to numbers. If you had another guy standing out there, like if you're from Canada and I'm playing US, we got 11, you got 12, like there's less opportunity for us out there.
For sure.
I watched a little CFL the other day.
Did you?
Oh.
Does it make you want the extra player, or you're like, it's unnatural, get the cancer out? Which way is it?
I love to play with it. I do work with some 12-man teams. It's always interesting.
Strange. Once you go even numbers, it's just so weird.
Yeah. Well, 8 works. 8-man works. 6-man's okay. 6-man's run out of a necessity, in like Montana and stuff, where it's just not.
Texas has 6-man. Did you know that?
Because Texas is huge, and so there's parts of it where they don't have people
down there.
Yeah, but it's like Montana and stuff run 6-man, and like it makes sense. They have to. We adapt to that. I'm surprised at the number of 9-man game, because I don't like 9-man game as much. I don't think the numbers work as well as 8-man, but there's a lot of 9-man. We had one 10-man school, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Or I don't know if it was an organization or something. And I was like, "We can't find one more guy."
Put him on the line.
Just put Ghost Man tight end. Like, let's move on.
Awesome. Well, man, I think we checked all the boxes today. We talked a little trimming down your playbook. Once again, I know you spent all summer building up all the cool things you're going to do this year, but it's time to be honest with yourself. What are you going to do? And that's just a few ways for you to trim it down, be successful in your first couple games, and then add in a little bit of your pieces as your kids learn and understand. I'm even taking this into my install. Like, I know you do the 5-day install. We're doing that, but repeating days.
Yep.
Like, we're literally just going to run whatever our day 1 install is for 2 days in a row. Whatever our day 2 install is actually day 3 and 4.
That's what we did. That's what we did during the summer, or during our off season. Is we did, 2 days. So we would do a week of zone and a week of power counter and a week of each scheme. So which would be 2 days, because I'm offense 2 days, defense 1 day, because that's fair. Screw those guys. I'm the outside linebacker coach, but that's the way it worked out.
I love it. You could alternate. You could switch weeks.
Well, this is a defensive week coming up because I'm going to be gone. So Go nuts.
I have all 3 days. That
Yeah, you're all 3 days.
All right. One last time.
Hopefully the head coach will take over and run some offense.
There we go.
He knows all the stuff.
Pay the bills one more time, Joe.
Yeah, check out joedanielfootball.com/rules. 40 Coach Simple rules for football coaches that want to win more games. You got things in there. Again, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this episode, if you want to know more about it, that's a great way to get started. Go to especially the non-negotiables, the drill philosophy, Coach Simple philosophy, all of those things that we've talked about, some of which we've talked about in this episode. Umbrella principle, I believe, is some in there. So get that 40 Coach Simple rules for football coaches that want to win more games. One of those things is going to help you win a game. Go to joedanielfootball.com/rules.
Awesome. Don't forget about athleticspeedandmovement.com. Jump over there and get Del Basquet's 46 plus years of speed and movement training. Remember that you are playing a game that happens on an unimproved surface at a very high rate of speed between a whole bunch of big dudes trying to do the fundamentals. So I still think back to that. I watched the USA sprint team the other day. The women won the world title. Not one knee on any person out there went above their waistband.
Yeah.
Not one. And I thought, that's even in track. Why would we practice knees all the way up to our chest in football? So get back to the basics. We talk about cutting out all the foo-foo. There you go. athleticspeedmovement.com.
We
will cut
did
back to the core.
We finished our 12-week, at the end or beginning of July, right before the dead period. We did the first week we did some lateral. I haven't gotten into a next system yet. We did the curve sprint stuff for the first time the other day. It was beautiful.
But it was.
Oh my gosh. Watching these kids who have been through the 12-week course and they get into the curve sprint, and it was just like, man, look at these kids run. It is awesome. It is awesome. It is such a, like, it's just a no-brainer for your football program. Guys, you need it. It's $97 right now to get the base program. So go to athleticspeedandmovement.com, click on the store button, and get it.
Love it. What cells are opening and closing, this being August 1?
Oh, we just closed Football Coaching 101, so I have no idea what's opening up in August. I believe Game Film Masterclass, but don't quote me on that. I believe it's Game Film Masterclass.
Jump to joedanielfootball.com and you can find out what's for sale.
As long as you get that Coach Simple, as long as you get the 40 Coach Simple rules and sign up there, you'll be getting the emails. So make sure, if you don't have it yet, go to joedanielfootball.com/rules and you will know everything that's coming up. If you want to get into JDFB premium coaching systems, it is probably closed right now when you're listening to this. Get on the waiting list. Waiting list always gets first notice, gets special offers, gets first opportunity. Sometimes we just have a few spots open. We only send out to the waiting list and don't release it to anybody else. And, if we just happen to feel like, okay, we've only got 5 or 6 spots open, we're just going to send them to the waiting list. So you need to be on there to get in.
Perfect. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter. You can jump over to chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. The Patreon's alive and popping. I don't know the word for it. There's a lot of just...
Yeah. Be everywhere. Yeah. On Twitter, football info. And I'll be honest, I'm checking Twitter less and less and less. Yeah.
That's on there right now.
Yes. And also find me on our podcast. You can find this podcast on YouTube at joedanielfootball.com/.
If it's your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are going to be the big two. And listen for a while, please leave us a review, especially on those. Once again, if it's 4 or 5, let her ride. If it's lower than that, let us know what we're doing wrong. We'll see if we can't fix whatever it is that irks you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.